Hey guys, welcome back. Weekly Market Outlook today. As we received your feedback, please, Frank, make it shorter. The 25 minutes are really too long. We're going to start with a shorter session today. We got this coming week a couple of interesting news events. The Bank of Australia, RBA, is going to decide upon their interest rate moving forward. We got the British Central Bank, Bank of England, which is going to decide on their interest rate. And we got a couple of news in regards to the US dollar. So stay focused on the next couple of minutes and see how the markets might offer us a bit of opportunities. This week so far, we had interest rate decisions. We had the Bank of Canada, we had the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, Bank of Japan, and we saw a ton of volatility in markets. That, in general, basically moved the dollar higher. Why that? With an interest rate cut out of the US, we should have expected the US dollar to weaken. Wasn't the case. Why? Simply because this has already been priced in markets that basically the rates are going to be adjusted and lowered. That's obviously kind of now the bottom line. End of the month, profit taking. We have some potential news this week, as said. Let's go over them step by step. Tuesday, early morning, cash rate decision. Now, RBA, the monthly policy statement. We expect no change. Recently, we've seen that consumer prices in Australia have been rising. Rising prices, meaning the central bank needs to offset that by kind of raising interest rates. Technically, they're not going to do that, but they will likely leave the interest rate unchanged and hence obviously kind of offer some important motivation. The US dollar is the second currency if looking at the Aussie US dollar currency pair. And let's examine how this goes. Currently, we see the dollar index. That's basically everything against the dollar, kind of a couple of other currencies, the euro, Japanese yen, Canadian dollar, just you name it. Check it out yourself. The importance is that technical resistance zones have been broken basically, and now we might see the market rocking higher. The question is how much upside will we see? And I might say currently the market looks kind of quite interesting. Any retracement in the dollar index might be used to buy the index. Now, we don't want to trade the dollar index, but what we want to look into is the other currency pair, which is the Aussie US dollar currency pair. And that comes hand in hand with the interest rate decision, which is due basically in a couple of trading days on a Tuesday. And recently we've seen that the Aussie basically against the US dollar was kind of trying to break the high points. Consumer prices rising technically caused the Aussie to strengthen. Yet on the flip side, we've seen that equity markets, stock markets went somewhat higher, but couldn't kind of remain at higher levels and seem to correct. Now, the equation is stock markets falling, the Australian dollar potentially falling as well. And hence, obviously, we see that the Aussie US dollar currency pair might weaken further. On the technical side here, when looking at this charting pattern, we see this pin bar candlestick, and that's a beauty, right? So something worth a consideration to see the market trading to the downside. I like this kind of the male side of things, right? So like the soldier marching out. But in this case, what we see is currently that the market is going to weaken and probably looking half dead, right? So that's the female side. In any case, jokes aside, we see that the downside motivation based on this candlestick pattern might be kind of quite interesting. If the market breaks below the low here, based on the daily chart, we saw that. And for our members, guys, just check out FXStrategies.asia, our website, check out the membership packages. We've been talking about it fairly recently, and we opened a sell trade here earlier in the week. Now the market is going to break potentially at least off the 50 moving average. Downside momentum might be seen, and downside motivation here is what we could see moving forward with potentially further downside motivation here. So market trend moving lower is the idea potentially in the Aussie. The monthly chart looking kind of quite in between the zones, so no man's land. We can also talk about the opposite side, which is not quite opposite, but the New Zealand US dollar, and that's about to break the support zone, which is an interesting one here. If the support zone breaks away further, and we saw that, right? So all the way always at this resistance area, the market started to weaken. Aussie US, New Zealand US dollar, both quite similar currency pairs. obviously causing a shift in momentum, causing the markets to maybe weaken further. Bottom line, dollar strength. And the dollar strength can be seen against other currency pairs. The euro is going to weaken. So that looks kind of quite cool here to break potentially to lower areas. And now we should talk as well about the British pound. As we said earlier, we got the interest rate decision on Thursday. It is not expected that the Bank of England is going to cut interest rates. Now, they have the issue basically that the economic demand or the economy is slowing down. They have still some solid employment figures rising in a way to some extent. So that's not overly bad. But when looking at the currency pair, we've been an advocate for quite a while here, expecting that the market is going to weaken further, especially of this important resistance point, and that's, guess what, simply what's going to happen at the moment. And we expect this trend line to continue. Any retracement higher is what we like to kind of get our hands into, to see the market breaking to the downside. Everyone expects the US dollar to basically weaken, but that's currently not quite the case. And hence we saw the risk sentiment to change the direction. Stock markets weaken potentially. The Federal Reserve's rate cut was obviously not a surprise, but had been anticipated. And since it had been anticipated, now there's seemingly not much of new weakness in the US dollar going to happen. Instead, we see some strength, and the strength is simply what causes most markets to change direction. Now, this one is that's the silver chart, and the silver market has been moving to the upside. Instead, in case you haven't watched the recent interview with the only David Morgan, we can see that he also said there might be some correction in the making. Check out the link if you want to check the video here. The silver market looks overly stretched. Now, we got this technical pin bar candlestick, and if the market, when the market in the past had gone to such overstretched levels, quite often it was able to correct, and that's expectedly what we see here in this market. So we expect the silver price to basically weaken somehow further. We got the confirmation by other markets as well. So we see, by other time frames, I mean, the weekly chart, technical resistance, the last basically 2 weeks, the markets went slightly lower. Well, this current week, the market did not really go much lower, because instead the market raised its momentum to higher levels again. But in the end, we expect the market to weaken somehow further, which, by the way, is as well what we see in gold. The gold market also kind of does something similar. It's obviously retracing off the high points here. So we shall be interested to see the start of this early month of November. Any slight retracement higher might be used for this market to basically weaken somehow further. Gold prices potentially weakening. Downside motivation in gold and in silver are likely the idea here we want to follow up with in trading in the next couple of trading days. S&P 500 correcting as well. So that's, as we said, the risk sentiment. The S&P's technical weekly charting pattern looking set to weaken further. We got something similar of the Nasdaq as well. And that's exactly how we see markets at the moment. We see them kind of overstretched. And this is what currently causes maybe the risk sentiment to weaken. Now, the Bank of England is not expected to cut rates. What if they do? I highly doubt it, but this could be one reason exactly to weaken the British pound as well somehow further. But back to our last one here, crypto space. Crypto markets have also weakened quite a bit, basically, right? So in the end, Bitcoin ended its trading month slightly lower. And again, slightly higher momentum happening at the moment in Bitcoin, also in Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is kind of quite interesting here, because we are basically resistance right now turning support. Now, if the market fails here, we might see it basically weakening towards the 50 moving average. If it can trade, or if it can continue to trade above the high points this week, we might see another attempt higher, with maybe even another breakout to the upside. But for this to happen, we also need basically the other markets to increase their momentum, and that's the Nasdaq or the S&P 500. XRP kind of quite interesting as well at the moment, sideways pattern so far. Solana kind of looking weaker here, and we stated, or we talked about this kind of quite a few times here, and I said that's a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder, basically a shoulder, head and shoulder pattern, and this might indicate that the Solana token could weaken further. Google it, check it out yourself. These head and shoulder patterns, especially on weekly and or monthly long-term charts, are quite remarkable with their accuracy. Cardano is not doing anything much at the moment, also sideways. And again, guys, that's all these markets we like to talk about. They are kind of really behaving in a sideways pattern so far. But the risk sentiment is currently what this story tells us here. And just to follow up with the last one before I let you go for a quicker one as promised here this week, oil prices are about to strengthen somehow, and we got this beautiful pin bar candlestick. Yeah, so the supportive trend line, and that's here the 58 whatever US dollar range. Currently we are trading even above 60, so let's name it 60 US dollar. The 60 US dollar zone, if it can last and if the market does not break below that area, we could really see that the market starts another appreciation here. And that's basically some risk on, risk off sentiment. What if we see geopolitical tensions kind of on the rise again? Currently, we have this candlestick pattern here, looking cool, right? Support, support, support there. And then this secondary trend with the market inside candlestick pattern-wise just offering potentially upside here at some point. Guys, that's my take so far for this week. So take into consideration the Australian dollars market volatility potentially with the RBA's interest rates decision on Tuesday. Thursday, we got the Bank of England, and we got the PCE price index on Friday from the US. It's likely not going to come out, which is also the same with the NFP, the non-farm payroll report, as obviously the ongoing everlasting shutdown still kind of plays its role in markets. 12 minutes, that was a shorter one. I hope you guys like this video. Please just leave your comment under the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well. And I see you guys soon. Have a good one. Have a good day trading. Bye.